Right, Benita, so far we don't have just many of the details. Now the Israeli Defense Forces are briefing correspondents about this analysis that what happened. And the main item, the bottom line that they came back with is that it's simply unable to determine definitively who fired the fatal shot, who killed Shireen Abu Akleh. This, of course, is based off the analysis, the ballistic analysis of the bullet. We've seen this image of the bullet. You can see it is quite warped, and it has been in the Palestinian hands. They've conducted their own analysis of the situation. So now the decision to bring it to the U.S. Embassy and have the Israelis look at it in this analysis, also including trying to match the weapons that were used during that raid. They know which soldiers were on that raid that day in Jenin that were present at the time when Shireen Abu Akleh was covering these clashes. The thought was maybe they could try and determine if this bullet was fired from one of those weapons. We know that was the main issue that Israelis were trying to look at. And if they didn't find from this weapon, they had other items that they could potentially look at. But it seems so far that they are not able to determine exactly why, but they didn't specify why they were unable to determine the bullet or match the bullet to a specific weapon. If it's simply due to the misshapenness, the warping that happened to the bullet, or simply it has been a certain number of time. They were also expected to determine whether it was specifically, if they could definitively say whether it was actually this bullet, which was the bullet that killed Shireen Abu Akleh. Of course, it has been in Palestinian hands, as we've said, so that's a big question. We're expected to hear a much more detailed analysis and much more detailed report from the American sides who were present for this examination to be taking place at the embassy. That's expected later today.
And of course, we will be covering all those details as they emerge. Why was that bullet kept until now? So much was made of the fact that the Palestinians didn't want to hand over this crucial piece of evidence, so to speak, until U.S. pressure came to bear. Break down what happened there.
Absolutely. So the Palestinians, since day one, the Palestinian officials, we even heard the day after at her funeral, the Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas even accusing Israel of executing her and saying that same day, the day after, that they would not support an Israeli investigation, a joint Israeli-Palestinian investigation to determine the events, to find out exactly what happened to the journalist while she was killed covering these clashes. They have refused Israeli offers. They've refused also the U.S. offers. The U.S. from day one has also been offering to get involved in the investigation, to try and play some role as an observer, a mediator. And we are finally now seeing it play out. But now we're almost 2 months after this has happened. But we are seeing it come just on the heels of President Joe Biden. The American president is expected to land here next week. It's his first visit to the region. And it is expected to assume that this is one of the issues that they wanted to try and see if that they could wrap up before Biden comes, to try and put this case behind them and to move forward, both the Israelis, the Palestinians. He's coming to not just to Israel, he's also going to the West Bank, where he will be meeting with the Palestinian president, other Palestinian leaders. So it certainly is an issue that has sort of loomed over the U.S. ties with both the Palestinians and the Israelis. And we have heard a number of U.S. officials calling for an independent investigation. We also heard a bipartisan group of U.S. lawmakers at the beginning of June also coming out and calling for an independent probe. So certainly there has been a lot of pressure. It's unclear, but it does seem to be that somehow right before Biden's visit that the Palestinians finally did agree and finally did give in to this pressure to give up the bullets so that Israel and the U.S. Embassy could look at it.
Timing here is obviously crucial. Thank you so much, our diplomatic correspondent, Mary McAuliffe.